Grassley?
Yeah. Thanks to both of you for your testimony. I'm going to start with Mr. Watson. Senator Graham and I have introduced the Human Rights Violators Act, which, among other things, would formally authorize the center and the appointment of a director for the center. And I know you covered some of this in your written statement, but for those who may not be familiar, could you briefly, and I emphasize briefly because I got some longer questions for you to answer, explain what the center does, in particular use the Operation No Safe Haven as an example?
Yes, sir. So to begin, the center in its operations has investigative support teams, regional support teams, as well as the Human Rights Target Tracking Team. And they all work amongst interagency partners in, one, vetting and validating leads, receiving tips, and then forwarding investigative leads and referral for ongoing investigations. So the center is robust with over 77 members that support ongoing human rights violators and war crimes cases. So that level of effort continues with great success. And we believe that if the center were codified, it would institutionalize interagency relationships and also send a message to the international community that the United States government affirms its position as the United States will not be a safe haven for human rights violators and war criminals.
I think you just answered my next question, Mr. Watson, the importance to formalize and authorize a center. So let me go on. Could you explain why the work of the center is so important in ensuring that human rights violators from around the world don't find a safe haven in the United States?
The work of the center is important because with any conflict that occurs across the globe, victims come to the United States. They're seeking an opportunity to be free from the perpetrators of crimes against humanity and or war crimes. With that being said, sometimes the perpetrators will follow, and they also can come to the United States by way of fraud or false pretense. So the work of the center in, one, leveraging our regional support teams, as well as our partnerships across the interagency, the international community, as well as NGOs and academia, are critical. One, to keeping track as to events and conflicts that are occurring across the globe, unintended as well as consequences that present themselves, and then what the appropriate response will be in coordination with our interagency and international partners.
Before I go to Mr. Rosenbaum, I know that you also mentioned the importance of taking action on FGM. I just wanted to flag that my bill addresses that issue as well. Mr. Rosenbaum, I lead a bipartisan bill with Chairman Durman and former Chairmans Graham and Leahy, as well as others, to ensure that we have jurisdiction to prosecute foreign war criminals who hide here. Often the United States will have the option to extradite someone who commits war crimes in a foreign country back to the scene of the crime or to their home country or another country that is willing to try them. Is this always the case, or are there some instances where we need a domestic prosecution option?
Thank you, Senator. We're glad that you and the Chairman share the Justice Department's commitment to ensuring that the United States is not a safe haven for the perpetrators of war crimes and other atrocity crimes, and also that we have the tools that we need to bring such persons to justice if they do get into the United States. Extradition is sometimes an option, and the Department of Justice has pursued that. I think, for example, of the case of Suleiman Mujagic, who was investigated by my section, the Human Rights and Special Prosecution Section, along with our partners at HSI and I believe FBI. And we got him indicted with our partners in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District of New York for torture. But when his extradition was requested by Bosnia and Herzegovina, we shifted gears and the department worked hard to facilitate that extradition, and he was, in fact, sent to Bosnia and Herzegovina to stand trial. In general, people should be tried near the scene of the crimes to be judged by the communities they've offended. And in the the Justice Department manual, the possibility of trial in a different forum is something that prosecutors are supposed to consider in every case. But sometimes, for instance, if the government that directed the perpetration of the crimes is still in power, for example, extradition isn't practicable.
Could I have a follow-up? For you, Mr. Rosenbaum, discuss some of the statutes that have successfully used present in jurisdiction.
As you've mentioned, Senator, there are numerous statutes that incorporate present in jurisdiction. There are at least 21 of them, in fact, that Congress has enacted and that are in Title 18, the Federal Criminal Code. Many of them relate to terrorism, and they run the gamut from incidents in airports that interfere with aviation to a multiplicity of, as I think I said, terrorism offenses. And we also have present in jurisdiction under the torture statute and under the genocide statute, as well as the statute criminalizing use or recruitment of child soldiers, which kind of sounds in war crimes as well, and in the female genital mutilation statute. So the absence of present in jurisdiction in the war crime statute is sort of an outlier among the human rights enforcement statutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Feinstein.
Thank you, Mr.